Hi, I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. Check out a news story for you, and it's from oilprice.com. And I haven't really talked about the Syrian war, and it's mostly because it was kind of a complex subject and wasn't always just easy and clear to, understand why the hell the Syrian government was, fighting against the rebels and just that whole situation. So I held off for a little bit, but now that I've read a few more articles about it, it's becoming a little bit, at least a little bit more clear. And let's get on with it. Okay, because in 2009, Qatar, a leading natural gas producer, approached Syria about routing its planned 1,500-mile pipeline to the gas markets of Europe through Syria's Aleppo province. Qatar wanted a pipeline straight to Europe as its current gas transport modes are limited to liquefied natural gas tanker, mostly to Asia, with limited spot shipments to Europe of the Dolphin pipeline to the United Arab Emirates and Oman. The pipeline would north and end in Turkey after crossing Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Syria. Syria declined Qatar's offer, which would have cut the European market share of its partner, Russia, and instead agreed to participate in the Friendship Pipeline between Iran and Iraq that was considered a Shia pipeline to some, a target for the Sunni monarchies of the Gulf. Not understood or ignored was Syria's long-standing support of the Iranian regime, especially during the 1980 through 88 Iran-Iraq War. Its long relationship with Russia dating from 1944, which should have been a warning of who might appear if things hotted up. In 2011, Syria, Iran, and Iraq agreed to build a pipeline to connect Iran's South Pars gas field to Europe. The pipeline would run from Asolier, Iran, to Europe via Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, with Syria as a center of assembly and production. Well, what remains unclear is why, when Syria turned down its original pipeline proposal, it didn't pursue its second option for the pipeline route: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq. Aside from the challenging terrain in Iraq, most likely reason of discovery of vast gas reserves in the eastern Mediterranean, Saudi opposition to a pipeline through Kuwait. If a more Qatar-friendly regime were to gain control of Syria, Qatar would be able to garner more profit and have influence over the state, something it is unable to do with Saudi Arabia, which vehemently opposed Qatar's historic support of the Muslim Brotherhood, Jordan, a U.S. ally, or Iraq, and an Iranian ally. At that point, it was nothing personal, just business, and the Saudis had to go. So isn't that something? Now, Qatar and Saudi Arabia couldn't get what they wanted, which was a pipeline through Syria. So it's like, you know what? We gotta fucking overthrow them. So just because of that, it's just business. So they gotta go and kill thousands, tens of thousands of people, and throw in their own puppet president just so they can make some money. It's fucking atrocious. But another article talks about this too. And this is from the Armed Forces Journal. And he talks about how you can't understand a conflict without talking about natural gas. Much of the media coverage suggests that the conflict in Syria is a civil war in which the Alawite or Shia Bashar al-Assad regime is defending itself and committing atrocities against Sunni rebel factions who are also committing atrocities. The real explanation is simpler. It's about the money. So he says the same thing. Carter proposed to put a natural gas pipeline through Syria, but they didn't want that. Yeah, so Saudi Arabia and Qatar, now they're really fighting to remove Bashar al-Assad so they could really get that pipeline built. And then he goes in a little bit more about the conflict, and he talks about who controls the government controls the state's resources, and by extension, the wealth derived from them. In Syria, the Sunnis have tried to unseat the Alawites ever since France installed them during the French Mandate that ended in 1943. But now the stakes are higher, thanks to natural gas. And it goes on, this is a really important part. Any review of the current conflict in Syria that neglects the geopolitical economics of the regions is incomplete. Nearly all media reports fit this description. I wonder why they don't want to talk about this shit. It's because, at the very least, our corporations, our oil companies, are going to be able to go in there after we help overthrow Assad and any other nation that doesn't want to agree to any other nation putting a pipeline through their country. That we're going to go overthrow them, and we're going to put our companies in there so where they could go and refine this crude oil, and make a bunch of money off of it. So that's fucking all it's been about at the heart of it. Is Qatar and Saudi Arabia need to make some fucking money. So if they got to go and overthrow a government and kill millions and millions of people to do it, and just overthrow any they need to create chaos and upend any democratically elected official and administration. That's what they're going to do, because they need to make some fucking money. And since our corporations are going to benefit from this, they're not going to mention anything about this. Because they're going to try to make sure they could keep this in the dark, so we could just keep beating the war drums about, oh, we got to make sure that we're taking care of the people of Syria and the people of this nation and Afghanistan and Iraq and blah, blah, blah. It's all just fucking bullshit. It's all lies. Because remember, we can't provide clean water for people in Flint, Michigan. We can't avoid to brutalize any environmental protectors and or environmental activists and water protectors in North Dakota. We got to make sure that just any protesters at any place, the police have to be all militarized and be sure to make sure they intimidate anybody that's doing that. Just all sorts of shit. Well, then also got an article from The Guardian. This was in 2013, and it talks about a lot of this stuff too. 21st of August in 2013, hundreds, perhaps over 1,000 people were killed in a chemical weapon attack in Ghouta, Damascus, prompting the US, UK, Israel, and France to raise the specter of military strikes against Bashar al-Assad's forces. The latest episode is merely one horrific event in a conflict that's increasingly taking on genocidal characteristics. The case for action, at first glance, is indisputable. The UN now confirms a death toll of over 100,000 people, the vast majority of whom have been killed by Assad's troops. An estimated 4.5 million people have been displaced from their homes. International observers have overwhelmingly confirmed Assad's complicity in the preponderance of war crimes and crimes against humanity against the Syrian people. The legitimacy of his regime and the legitimacy of the uprising is clear. Alright, here's a really important part. Experts are unanimous that the shocking footage of civilians, including children, suffering the effects of some sort of chemical attack is real, but remain divided on whether it involved military-grade chemical weapons associated with Assad's arsenal or a more amateur concoction potentially to the rebels. Whatever the case, if you recall that U.S. agitation against Syria began long before recent atrocities in the context of wider operations targeting Iranian influence across the Middle East. So yeah, of course, we've been playing in this shit for a long time. It's just that once something happens, like a gas attack that happened in 2013, that's when Obama said, that's a red line. He crossed it, so we're going to have to do something about it. So he wanted to go on bomb, but thankfully the Congress said, no, we're not going to do that. You know, we don't need to go to war. We don't need to add another war on. But of course, since our executive branch just has a little bit too much power, he goes and fucking bombs them anyway. Because we bombed Syria so much, we fucking ran out of bombs. And of course, the corporate media doesn't talk about that shit. We had so many bombs out there, we fucking ran out. And the U.S. isn't the only bad actor involving this Middle Eastern oil pipeline stuff either, because according to French Foreign Minister Ronald Dumas, Britain had planned covert action in Syria as early as 2009. I was in England 2 years before the violence in Syria on other business, he told French television. I met with top British officials who confessed to me that they were preparing something in Syria. This was in Britain, not in America. Britain was preparing gunmen to invade Syria. So Britain was in on it too, because I guess they were going to profit somehow to overthrow Assad, so they wanted to do it too. See, also, in 2011, well, it goes on a little bit, and then leaked emails from the private intelligence firm Stratfor, including notes from a meeting with Pentagon officials, confirmed U.S.-UK training of Syrian opposition forces since 2011 aimed at eliciting collapse of Assad's regime from within. So, of course, we've been training some of the terrorists over there for quite a long time. And that's what we've been spending our money on, is making sure the terrorists could overthrow Assad. Because we're really not supposed to be going and overthrowing governments. So what was this unfolding strategy to undermine Syria and Iran all about? According to retired NATO Secretary General Wesley Clark, a memo from the Office of the U.S. Secretary of Defense just a few weeks after 9/11 revealed plans to attack and destroy the governments of 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and moving on to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. In a subsequent interview, Clark argues that this strategy is fundamentally about control of the region's vast oil and gas resources. So, like Cenk would say, of course it's about the gas, because there's really not a big reason why we'd want to go and overthrow those nations. Because what we want is we want to make money for our fucking corporations, be damned about anything else. So if we got to go and do something to make some money, that's what our government's going to do. If it involves killing millions of people, displacing millions upon millions of people, especially in Syria, so they need to go travel somewhere else to go, because they need to go and travel somewhere else because they're refugees now. Who cares? Who fucking cares if we're going to create a whole bunch of refugees and we're going to just create a whole bunch of chaos and instability in the Middle East and just create just untold amounts of human suffering? We got to make some fucking money. And of course, we help cause the fucking problem with all these refugees. And then especially our Republican legislators, they want to go and fearmonger about how, oh, these fucking refugees, they're so dangerous. Oh my gosh, ISIS could come in here through pretending to be refugees, and all sorts of fucking fearmongering bullshit. And so just to remind people that a lot of civilians be getting killed before the fucking gas attacks. So is it that if civilians get killed by regular arms, it's okay, but if they're killed by gas, now it's not okay, and we actually have to go and try to make sure we don't kill innocent people? Because that's just being a fucking hypocrite, and you're just cherry picking which issues you want to go and be for, or what you want to help people on, or what you want to be outraged about. So just keep that in mind. Alright, love you guys, and thanks for watching.